Hello there, people of the internet. So I was asked to talk about why some rifles, we're talking about bolt action rifles here, some rifles have a bent bolt handle whereas some rifles have a straight bolt handle. Now this is more of a topic that people get whenever they're looking at military surplus rifles. A lot of your modern day rifles are 9 times out of 10 going to have a bent bolt handle as opposed to a straight bolt handle. We'll go ahead and we'll talk about that. Let me give some examples right here. This is my 1891 Mosin. It does in fact have a straight bolt handle on it. Now that means that the bolt handle just juts out to the side and is not curved in any which direction. It is literally just a straight piece of metal sticking out of the side of the rifle. This is a very popular way that militaries would make their bolts back whenever these rifles were very popular, especially if you were in areas that were very cold. Having a nice straight bolt handle if you have gloves or something on, or if your hands are like wet or muddy or something like that, just very easy to make a positive grip on these straight bolt handles here. Now as time would go on, it would become discovered that these straight bolt handles snag on things, get in the way, they're inconvenient. You have this nice flat area of the rifle and this massive piece of metal sticking out the side. So eventually countries would move more towards a curved bolt handle such as this one right here. The curved nature of the bolt handle actually leads to more leverage of the bolts on the rifle, so it's easier to extract cases, but the actual fundamental mechanical system has a lot to play into that as well. That's not, the main reason why they started bending these bolt handles. But although you still have this piece of metal jutting out on the side, you have a far less profiled piece of metal jutting out on the side. Not only that, but as countries started to more adamantly adopt scopes and optics that would sit over the receiver right here, whenever you have a straight bolt handle and you try cycling that rifle, that bolt handle is gonna be up and smack into your scope, and you probably won't be able to even cycle the bolt with the scope in the way. A lot of your Mosins that are designed to be scoped from the rifle will have bent bolt handles for exactly that reason. And the reason why you don't see straight bolt handles on a lot of modern day rifles is for exactly that reason. Your bolt action rifles, most of your bolt action rifles modern day, I'm going to go ahead and say most, are designed to have some sort of scope on them. And if they had a straight bolt handle, then that bolt handle would smack into the scope and you would not be able to cycle your bolts, as you can see from this right here. There are some exceptions. There are scopes that are off-centered, off to the side of the rifle, but that's not really a convenient way to or a convenient place to have a scope, because then you have quite a bit of material off the side of the rifle and it's just not the most practical way to do things. They're also a lot more fragile when they're off the side of the receiver like that. That's not really a problem nowadays, but that was more prevalent back during the times when these rifles were more prevalent, especially in terms of military use. Now it's not just the bolt handles that were adopted with the idea of cycling them with the gloves on. There are a good number of changes to rifles that were adopted in these colder environments. Straight bolt handles 9 times out of 10 if you're in a cold environment and you're rocking a military surplus rifle, like if this was back in the day, they're going to have some sort of straight bolt handle on it because their soldiers would more often than not be wearing gloves or mittens or something like that. They also had enlarged trigger guards. That's what these right here are called. Enlarged trigger guards to be able to fit your finger inside the trigger guard and pull the trigger without the extra girthiness and thickness of your gloved finger accidentally pulling that trigger. The main two reasons why countries would choose to go with a bent bolt handle over a straight bolt handle. Straight bolt handles are also easier to manufacture. You don't have to worry about heating metal and bending it. But the main two reasons why countries adopted a bent bolt handle over a straight bolt handle are if they were going to use some sort of optic on the rifle, or just because it's a far lower profile piece of metal to have jutting out the side of the rifle, so they're easier to store, easier to maneuver with. You don't have to worry about these getting caught on things nearly as much as you do with a straight handled rifle. I do a lot of hunting with a lot of my military surplus rifles, And there's a pretty distinct and clear difference whenever you're rocking something that has a bent bolt handle versus something that has a straight bolt handle. There's been several occasions where I've been out and about and my bolt does not have some sort of locking feature like on the Mausers. Whenever you flop the safety on, the bolt itself locks in place as well. But there's several rifles I have that do not do that. So I've been out and about traveling through the jungles of Florida here while on hunting trips, and my bolt will actually get caught on something and it will open the bolts and my rifle will open up and discharge a shell. Well, not discharge a shell, it'll send a shell out, a non-spent shell. It won't fire a shell. The bolt will open on something and I'll lose a round. That's what I'm trying to say here. Then I gotta go find that round because I don't want to just leave it there in the middle of the woods, and it's a process. And that happens way more often with straight bolt handles than it does curved bolt handles. The second reason is, of course, optics. I'm not sure if I covered that. Two reasons: lower profile and optics. Now, of course, having an optic on your rifle impedes your ability to use stripper clips. This right here is like one of the latest production of these old school military style of rifles. During the time of this rifle's creation, semi-automatics were absolutely becoming the norm in the military world. Bolt-action rifles were obsolete by the time that this thing was being put into production. And a lot of your militaries around the world no longer use bolt-action rifles unless they're using it for some sort of heavy-duty anti-material rifle or some sort of extreme precision rifle. But besides that, they're pretty much out the door. You're no longer going to find military rifles in any modern military except for maybe Russia and Ukraine right now, who are issuing Mosin Nagant rifles. You know what? That automatically makes this statement untrue. But your modern military rifles are not going to be bolt-action rifles, so they're not going to have issue between straight or bolt handles, or bolt handles or bent bolt handles, because the only time that bolt-action rifles are issued in military service are going to have some sort of optic on it, so they're going to have some sort of bent bolt handle. Straight bolt handles on modern military equipment is just not going to be a thing. All right, well, hopefully this was a good enough explanation on the differences between straight bolt handles, bent bolt handles, and why countries went with each. I don't have much else to add on the topic. Was that a duck that I heard? I heard something. It wasn't Kevin. It sounded like a duck. Anyway, folks, let me know what y'all's thoughts are down below. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. Description down below has linked to all sorts of stuff, etc., etc. I'm going to go ahead and shoot some of these rifles, make some B-roll footage for this video so it's a little bit more entertaining to watch. And hopefully this right here was informative to some of the people that did not really understand or know much about the differences between these bolt handles and why they are the way that they are. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. Since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garen. Shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.